I would now like to invite Don Levy, one of our mentors and tonight's featured interviewee. Don is a managing director, portfolio manager, and senior financial advisor at Confido. I hope I said that right, Don. You'll correct
Fido.
me. Confido
That's okay.
Wealth Management Group, and he holds a BA in political science and economics. Welcome, Don. So, Don, when I heard your name, I was introduced to your name as Don Levy. But I said, he's from Jamaica. I'm sure he says Levy. But tell me, how do you say your name, Don?
Well, I do say Levy. Originally, though, yes, from Jamaica, and in Jamaica, it is pronounced Levy. However, once I moved there and said Levy, it would be misspelled invariably, and so I simply went along with Levy just to keep it consistent with the spelling and how it's pronounced in Canada.
Okay, so for this evening, shall I do the? Okay, I'll do the levy. Okay, good, good. Hi, Don. It's so nice to meet you virtually.
My
So I'd like
pleasure.
to start off by inviting you to tell us about your experience when you were a student at York University. What was that like? Tell us about York in your time.
My experience at York was fantastic. York was extremely supportive. I was very naive when I came to York. In fact, as I mentioned in my introduction, I had just moved from Jamaica. I had all of these goals and dreams, one of them being to get a university education. No one in my family had gone to university before. And I know when I told my brother, he said, well, that's a big goal. And I applied and got accepted and never thought about how I was going to pay for it. That was the first thing. And, the counselor there was a very, had just a great spirit and assisted me in every way to explore all of the different options in terms of student loans and grants, and combined with of course working part-time, I was able to fund it. But one of the things that really drew me to it drew me to York. I had gone around, I toured some other campuses, University of Toronto, I looked at other places, but I just felt a sense of belonging at York. It felt like home to me. I could relate, and I felt very comfortable. And I saw diversity at York, which was very important to me. And the professors were very informative. The courses just it was a breath of fresh air. And so my experience was very, very positive. If I had one regret, it was probably the fact that I didn't I had to work, and so I couldn't enjoy it to the fullest extent that I would have been that I would have liked.
Mhm. Thanks for that, Don. This is the experience of many of our students as well. Even currently, many of our students have to work part-time, and so getting involved with extracurricular activities can be a challenge. So
Yes.
yes, thanks for that. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path after York, and how York, the education you gained at York, helped, if it did?
Definitely. So I've always had the belief that you can, accomplish a lot if you plan. And so everything, that I did while I was at York, it was always about having a strategy, a plan. How, was I going to be able to accomplish this? What would I have to do? What were every minute steps that I had to measure out and execute a plan. And so that really prepared me and really forged me into that thought process that planning was the key to accomplishing anything that you set out to do. I first, I started at York with the intent that I was going to be a lawyer, and that was my first intent. And then as I learned a little bit more, I realized I didn't know much about the field. And my professor, one of the professors at the time, Ian Green, sat with me, explained to me a little bit about the whole career of law. And while, it was intriguing, I quickly realized that it was not my passion. And so I gravitated towards business and just started learning a lot more about business, about economics, a bit about finance. And so right after I left York, I opened a business. It was a wholesaling, retailing business. I teamed up with an importer from China that was bringing all sorts of products in, and I would hire people that would help me to sell those products directly, door to door. I did that for a couple of years, and then of course, it was reasonably. I did reasonably well at it, especially at first. But then, it wasn't consistent, and so I was getting married at the time, and one of the conditions that my wife laid out was that I had to get a real job as part of her accepting my marriage proposal. So I went and got a job in finance. It was with a company at the time called Trilon, which was part of the group of companies that owned Royal Trust, owned Royal LePage, and owned Trilon Financial. And then that division was quickly bought by, GE Capital. And so I spent a few years at GE Capital understanding and learning a little bit about finance, learned a little bit about, investing, the future value of money. But that wasn't enough for me. I was helping GE in terms of generating a return on their money. And I didn't see that as having a measurable impact. And so the thought of getting into wealth management, where I could help individuals and families shape their future, create intergenerational wealth, that was more appealing to me. And so I pursued then to get a number of credentials in that area, and then started my career 27 years ago in that area. And when our firm was sold, in 2008, I decided that I would launch out on my own, and the firm have grown. It was myself and one person. We now have about 25, a team of 25. And we've also grown the assets and grown our clientele significantly. And so I would say that, the education at York was one of the key. It gave me the confidence. It gave me, the ability to do what I do. But more importantly, it was the mindset and the thought process that, I had to plan for every single aspect of everything that I did at York. And I just took that, and expanded upon that in building this wealth management firm.
Thank you for that. And I can imagine that that planning came from having to work, having to do all your assignments, having to attend classes. So putting things together in
Yes.
scheduling, basic scheduling is part of that.
Yes.
How has networking, how has mentoring helped in your professional journey?
Networking is of paramount importance because, what is very important, but, you don't get to put that into practice until it's who you know. So networking allowed me to be able to connect with people who can help me, connect with potential clients, connect with other strategic partners, and even sometimes in bringing together the right team. Networking has played a huge role. So I am a huge advocate of networking, and to this day, I'm still involved with various forms of networking. An example that I currently have is on Thursdays, I meet with a group of about 10 to 12 business people, and we've been doing that now for the last 7 years. And we meet from 7 a.m. to 8:30 every Thursday morning, and just share ideas and share aspects of our personal life, our business life, and also combine that with sort of more deeper things like spirituality and so forth. So the concept of mentoring, plays a huge role, and our networking plays a huge role. And in that, as part of that, then is mentorship, and mentorship, is key, because we can make our own mistakes, or we can learn from other, individuals' mistake.
Yeah.
And so mentorship is something, that's important. I have had individuals who have mentored me when I first started. This was a new field for me, and I was fortunate to learn from others who gave me their time, and I thoroughly respected their time, and I felt that one of the best thing that I could do for the people who gave me their time is to make not only good use of it, but also to produce the kind of results that they can I say that their time was well spent.
Okay. So can you think of one or two important lessons that a mentor taught you, like something that you learned from somebody that you didn't have to go out and make mistakes and learn on your own?
I think I could think of a number of things. There are so many things that I could think about, but the first one that I was going to say has to do with the whole aspect of goal setting. And I remember one of my mentor would hammer that in. In fact, he would always say, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it with amazing accuracy. And that just stuck with me. And so I always had goals, but you honed in deeper and talk about having smart goals that were specific, that were measurable, that were attainable, that had certain time element to it. And so that was something that I had to learn personally before I could reiterate that to to clients and to employees and other associates. And so the concept of goal setting was something that was very important. But having that mentor and role model, also taught me another thing, because one of the things my mentor would say is, the key to success is to identify someone who've achieved great success in the particular endeavor that you're looking to head to. Study the recipe of that role model, and then implement that recipe faithfully. And that's one of the things that I have tried to do, in my line of work.
Okay, thank you. So what made you want to be involved with this program, Don? Why did you want to be a mentor?
I felt, there was a number of reasons I can think of. Firstly, unto those who much is given, much is expected. So, and to those who are even given more, even more is expected. So that's sort of my fundamental belief. One of the things when I sit down with clients, and being in the wealth management industry, I usually talk about three things. Everyone always has a goal of planning and saving for that retirement, and that retirement is the primary goal that everyone has. And so I usually break that down into a triangle. And I said, okay, think of let's put your goal in the form of a triangle. And at the very base of the triangle is what I call core needs. And core needs are monies that individuals need to meet all of their basic life expenses, such as food, clothing, shelter, transportation, healthcare, and taxes. And once everyone meets that need, they move to the next need, which are lifestyle need, monies that are needed to fund things like their hobbies, whether that is traveling and different endeavors along that line. And most people stop there. And one of the questions, I read a book, a few years ago, and it asked the question, how many individuals remember the name of their great grandmother? And I posed that question once, and it was a very, very small percentage. And I recognized, why was that? And that's because when we focus on just the two aspects, we're focusing on what I call, sustaining our lifestyle. And I want to ensure that my life was not just about a life of sustenance. But in order to go beyond that and live a life of significance, it meant having impact on individuals, empowering other individuals. And so this is just part of me carrying out, that mandate of helping, to have impact and empower. And it's part of building a legacy.